Control is a weird game. It's a third-person shooter that takes heavy influence from Twin Peaks as well as the brutalism art movement of the 1950s. That's especially weird. It's filled with surreal, cryptic imagery like this triangle and live-action sketches to showcase the world building. I'm gonna say weird one more time because that's what it feels like. You'd think Finnish developer Remedy would eventually run out of means to keep this surreal train ride going. But of course, being the crew behind the likes of Max Payne and that hybrid multimedia trip that was Quantum Break, they have saved their best surprise till last. After getting this Walkman from totally not David Lynch, our main character Jesse Faden is finally able to go through the previously inaccessible cigarette maze. Much like everything in Control, Ahti is a mysterious figure, this offbeat yet friendly janitor who seems to know much more than he's letting on. So the last thing I was expecting to come out of those headphones was... this.
Take control. Take control.
This is what the academics dub the needle drop. For those not familiar with the term, it's an instance within a piece of media when a pre-existing popular song is played. They are most commonly associated with cinema, as being both a visual and audio medium, it's no surprise that directors have been finding ways to implement music over the years. With the ever-growing speed technology has advanced, sound has continued to evolve with it, whether it's used to set the mood for a particular scene,
Some random.
For fuck's sake.
or a critical piece of the story. It's simple, yet effective, with certain directors becoming synonymous for their use of music.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Now, there's plenty of much more experienced people who can explain this weird malleable science better than I can. I mean, not to brag here, but I was able to beat the piano puzzle in Resident Evil Village without having to look up a walkthrough because I could read that sheet music. So I might just be equipped enough to talk about this topic. I might not know what a triple bass is, but I know a good tune when I hear one. See, music in video games has a lot more challenges to overcome compared to more traditional mediums, not just in the way it's implemented into a narrative, but how it serves the world building as well as the ever-changing situations the player finds themselves in. This is mainly an excuse for me to talk about some of my favorite tunes, how they cement themselves into our collective imagination, along with the ways it stands out from other more traditional mediums. So, without further ado, sit back, get your earphones in, and let's talk about some cool music. And video games, of course. Like, what else was it gonna be? Since it's already been mentioned, I think the best place to start with is the needle drop. This is probably the most unconventional yet also long-standing use of music for the medium. Midway was using Journey long before The Sopranos did. There's a lot of series whose soundtracks are primarily made up of licensed music, stuff like Tony Hawk or Need for Speed, which kick in the moment the player is given control. It's its way of basically handing you the control and say, hey, have fun. Go beat up Eric, he is the literal worst.
This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
Or take something like Fallout. Just saying that name immediately has the link to old jazz radios of the 40s and 50s. You cannot separate that upbeat music from the dark comedic tone. It's so intrinsically linked that when the associated song is played anywhere else, you're always going to be reminded of Fallout. Probably the biggest challenge a developer faces when employing a needle drop is making theirs stand out from the dozens of other times that similar song has been used. I mean, you hear some... What do you immediately go to? For example, I haven't played Saints Row the Third in over a decade, and this far into this sentence, a certain Kanye West track is already playing in your head right now. Or when Far Cry 3 starts playing Skrillex when you literally light up some weed. These are standout examples as compared to any of the other respective missions, the music choice is motivated and feels like a natural extension of the player's actions. Other fun examples come in the form of the rock concert from Alan Wake, which is now the second time I've mentioned one of Remedy's games, which must be a coincidence at this stage, or anything from Tim Schafer's heavy metal opus, Brutal Legend. But there's another kind of needle drop which has sadly fallen out of fashion in the last few years. It was kind of a given back in the day that games would open up with a fancy cutscene to get you excited for the adventure you're about to go on. If you didn't play the opening to Budokai 2, we cannot be friends. I'm sorry, that's just the end of it. There's two main reasons why they aren't as common nowadays. The first of which is how with the current graphical fidelity of modern games, it's not really required to draw you in anymore, which is a shame because the first impression is important. Even the handling of opening titles could be a great mood setter. The other completely logical reason is that it basically peaked in 2012 with this. The opening of Borderlands 2 is a classic. Type in opening video game cutscenes on YouTube and it's at like number 4. That's not just how Shortchange Hero by The Heavy absolutely slaps, but how it plays over an ambush with the 4 playable characters that you get to choose. That's leaner, bigger, and darker than anything that came in the first game. It's dynamic, it's exciting, and ends with an expert mic drop that lets you know who the villain is, who's in charge, and who you're facing.
It's cute that y'all think you're the heroes of this little adventure, but you're not. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos.
Now, since this section is probably, actually scratch that, most definitely gonna get copyright claimed, let's move on to a different area of sound design which can also be really effective. When you think of Nintendo, probably one of the first things that comes to mind is their music.
FBI, open up! Bruh.
Outside their aesthetic, it's arguably one of their most defining characteristics. Look how empty and boring the Wii Shop is without that theme.
Well, this sucks.
It's remained a core touchstone of the brand's identity because you've probably noticed that the vast majority of Nintendo's characters don't really speak. Outside Kid Icarus, of course, because he never stops talking. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To get back to what diegetic sound is, it refers to an actual sound coming from within the world in real time. Think of the opening of Splatoon 2 with the news update each time you boot up the game, or KK Slider playing the main theme in the credits to Animal Crossing New Horizons. They both fit into their respective worlds while also keeping a distinct identity. Having the score built for specific situations helps each individual one stand out, or have it take a more reactive role, such as the opera boss fight from Nier Automata. As the name suggests, reactive soundtracks are something that correspond to whatever actions the player is doing, which can come in the form of audio cues or the use of non-diegetic music. In comparison to its in-person sibling that is heard by the characters within a text, non-diegetic music is the opposite, in that it is composed separately and then added later into production. Instead, they feel as if the game is being scored around you. It's how Hades employs additional melodies in the boss fight with Megra as things grow more intense. Or in Pokemon, with one of the best and most underutilized themes in that entire series is the critical health music from Black and White. To this day, I have no clue why you'd replace this tune. Words are gonna fail me here, so I'm gonna go quiet for a second and let you appreciate it in all its glory. It's not just the tracks themselves that can add flavor, but it's how they can be remixed to suit a different tone. Like Bayonetta putting its own spin on Fly Me to the Moon in the first game, and then in the second game uses Moon River and morphs them into its own distinct identity. Now this is definitely stretching the term needle drop, but like all things in music, the ebb and flow of scenes can be enhanced or completely ruined by a score. Whether it comes in the form of a title screen, pause menu, or even just a lounge area waiting for the next match to start. There's a real power to music. When the motifs and melodies become so ingrained into your head, they bring you right back to the days when you first heard them. I still remember playing Mass Effect 3 when the best dance in gaming history happened. The dread of the flood in Halo on my parents' old computer, the power of Lee's final march to save his daughter, or booting up Ocarina of Time on the 3DS to those long summer drives down south to visit my extended family, those are all tied to those tracks. And it's clear developers are recognizing how popular this has grown because some of their music has grown beyond the games themselves. As much as Nintendo's views on copyright and preservation have remained frustratingly stagnant, getting a virtual concert for Splatoon is really neat. There was also this little thing that came out in 2018 called KDA, which really doesn't need an explanation. Music, in a lot of ways, is a language. It's something that goes beyond one's cultural influence and can be heard and understood by anyone. One of my favorite moments in university was when we had this open mic night, and the final person sung their song entirely in Spanish. There was this amazing moment when everyone in the room just sat silently to listen. We didn't know what it was or even what it was about, but that didn't matter, we just felt it. And I think that was just really cool. Was there a point to any of this? No, not really. Did I have fun making it? Yes. And really, that's the most important part of it. Video game music is my go-to when I'm feeling down or when I want to get fired up to work again. It can do a lot more than most people give it credit for, and I think that's worth discussing sometimes. And that's all I gotta say. I'll see you next time.
This is most disturbing.
Came here tonight for a reason. You're just gonna sit around here and ignore it.
I just wanted to move on from all this. Being here is suicide, and you bloody well know it.
Does it not make you feel better knowing that somebody else seen what we seen? We didn't just dream it up.
He's still alive! And we're going back, alright?